I'm going to tell you why your bass lines ain't sticking, why you are folding every time you go to a jam session, and I'm going to show you or give you some ideas for how to fix that. All right, let's go. Listen, now look, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or piss anybody off or definitely no shade to my fellow creators in the bass space. But here's something that I feel really, really strongly about. Oh, by the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Ted and I talk bass. One of the things that I notice a lot, I know people like their PDFs and your downloads and you feel like you're getting something, right? But have you ever noticed that when you try to remember what you've read, or when you try to regurgitate something, it doesn't stick when you are actually in a real world setting? It doesn't connect when you're trying to play along with a record or jam with your friends. The reason is, think about it. Let's just pretend that I wrote a script for this video and I tried to put myself in the mind frame of, everything I was going to say and exactly how I was going to say it. Well, that would sound robotic. And also, I just wouldn't be able to express my ideas. You see what I'm saying? Now, if I made like little bullet points, little notes, and I said, I want to say this here and this here and this here, cool, no problem. Let me give you an example. And I don't mean to equate Martin Luther King Jr. to bass players, but it's the best example I got at this moment. So I think we can all agree that Martin Luther King's most famous speech is the I Have a Dream speech. Now, that speech is partially improvised. This is how I understand it. I'm no historian. Just roll with me on this, all right? So he's got sort of the shell of the speech and part of the speech written out, right? And then his favorite gospel singer and friend, Mahalia Jackson, screams out to him, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And then he goes off script, right? And so all of the mannerisms, his inflections, words that he's using, the style that he's using them in, those aren't new to him. Those are things that he's done. The concept, say, of being a preacher. He's been a preacher. He's grown up in this environment, in this sort of preaching environment. So that's what comes out of him. He's got that language. He's got that vocabulary. And that's what we need to do as musicians, as bass players. Think about this. Most of the popular bass lines that you are learning or want to learn, those things were not, I'm willing to guess that they weren't written out note for note. The people who played them on the recordings, they didn't have note for note transcriptions written out, right? I'm putting money down that Louis Johnson didn't write any of his. He may have had chord charts. That's a whole different thing, right? And I'm not saying that reading isn't important. I do it, and I think that everybody can do it. But when we read, we should be getting information that we use, right? So if you see something on the page, I don't care what it is, a lick, a written out line, a concept. We want to get that. And then we want to see what that thing is made out of and how can we then use it. So what happens is you're trying to remember something that you see on a page, and if the page isn't there, the music doesn't happen. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's a big stumbling block. And anyone who's watched any amount of my content knows that I'm not a fan of tablature at all. The only way I would say okay to tab is if there is rhythm, the stems on there, and you can see the rhythm, because that way the tab can help you find where your fingers go. But you gotta learn the rhythm. You gotta get the information out of there. Get the concepts out of there. Listen, everything that I'm saying right now, I don't have to write it down because I've had this talk with people before in my life, right? I've had it some on this channel. So that's what I'm saying. Get the concepts the same way that you would read a book and get concepts out of the book. This is how language works, right? And music is a language. That is not a euphemism. It is a language. So we want to get that vocabulary out of those things. And if you find a lick, you say, oh, well, here's a minor 7, a minor 7 lick or whatever. Take that and then start applying that wherever you can in different keys, and you start seeing how this works, right? You start seeing how it works, and then what happens is it's bits and pieces of that become yours. And so you're just, building a catalog of vocabulary. But what happens is we get, I got this transcription of this song. And then you spend, however long on that song. You go to play that song with your friends, and, you're like, oh, what do I do? Right? Because we're using the page as a crutch. Now, listen, if you're going to, I didn't plan on saying this, but Tom Play, this is not a sponsored video. I do have an affiliate link for Tom Play down below. It's interactive sheet music. They've got the tab with the stems or whatever. If you're gonna read that, listen, do it with the stems and the rhythms included, okay? Don't just rely on just those numbers. But ultimately, whatever is on that page is not going to, it's only going to be a piece of the puzzle. It ain't the whole thing. So you got to put this thing into your lived experience. You dig what I'm saying? Listen, start a dialogue with me, because I want to know, what do you think? Am I tripping or what? What are your thoughts? Does tab and notation, does that really help you, or do you think it's progressing you further? If it is, cool, no problem. Let me know below. All right, so check out that playlist over there. There's some cool stuff awaiting you over there. And hey man, groove first, groove hard, and groove always. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace. 2 fingers.